Oh, man. I'm excited for this one. Yeah. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Rewatch. The Batman, it's coming out soon. Soon. I'm talking about March. It ain't moving. You know what it means? It means that Coy has shit sources, is what it means. He hears it's moving. It ain't moving nowhere. That thing's coming in like a storm of comic book goodness that we're getting ready for. Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson, all of it. And what are we going to do? We're going to geek out and we're going to rewatch some stuff. And we watched 89 Batman last week, and then you bastards are making me do this Batman Returns. I think there'll be some things that I say that are surprising, other things probably not as much. I don't know where Winston and Coy land. I just have to thank them for being my sounding board as I watched the first 15 minutes and ultimately complained to them. So I don't know where they landed. We'll see. Either way, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about it for sure. And if you didn't do it already, why don't you hit that subscribe? What I need you to do is show a little bit of class. That's all we need you to do. Just show an ounce of class and hit subscribe. Hit that notification button, and you're really going to be showing some class if you do that. That's all we're about. It's classy talk here, and if you subscribe, you'll be full of class. The patron. You know about it? Well, now you do. You like these rewatches? We're going to do bonus episodes of rewatch, like the movies that maybe you never thought it would be something we'd look at, whether it's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, hell, Lawrence of Arabia. God knows. I've never seen Citizen Kane all the way through. Someone was like, hey, listen, you got to do it for a rewatch. We'll join the Patreon and do that shit today. A lot of stuff. Look at all that stuff going on there. And it's pretty great. Big thing, you can do it on Apple Podcasts. You can do it on Spotify. You can do it anywhere that podcasts are found. And look at that. Look what we did for you. The great Thad Williams was able to do it. You just listen on Apple Podcasts, scan that shit, man. Do it. As I said, show a little. And here we go. We're going to get into the, what was that? Was that a little song? I would get again, bum, 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 get again. And I need another espresso. All right, here we go, everybody. It is the big thing. It's this fucking piece of shit. Let's do it. What's up, everybody? Mayor's Eating Fish. That's what we're watching today. Mayor's Eating Fish is the name of the original title of this movie. I don't know what the hell it's called. It's nice to have you all here, and I got my crew. It's my crew. I don't know why you guys like us together so much. Maybe I like talking to these guys. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to tell them to their faces. They can hear me, but I'll just say it was someone do an impression of me. The fuck am I talking about? Ladies and gentlemen, it is Winston A. Marshall, Coy Jandreau. They are here.
Did we just see Kristian have an existential crisis for 3 minutes?
If you're watching the channel, you'd see it every day.
1,000%. And also,
I dropped
you ain't coming for you dropped 3. You ain't coming for me this episode. We haven't even started yet.
Excuse me very little. You have cursed more in 7 years. I don't even know what I'm talking about, Winston. It doesn't matter.
You have cursed more in 7 years, Winston. What does it mean? It doesn't matter.
I ripped off Paddington's head today because he was talking shit. I said, look, Paddington. Yeah, you want to cat noise me, Paddington? I'll tell you what, you little prick. I'll rip your head off before it's... Yeah, keep going. Keep going. Who's that pussy?
Batman Returns. It brings out the best in people.
I'll tell you what, man. There's
just
a lot.
The pussy I was looking for.
I thought of you immediately when that came up, Winston, because I was like, it's just dirty, filthy humor in this movie that is not for kids at all. It is. Bro. This movie has no idea what it wants to be, and I know. Look, I'm going to preface this now. I don't know where Coy and Winston are going to land on this movie. I know. I read the comments last week. There are people who love this movie. You're gonna hate me because this movie this movie stinks. It stinks so bad. It gets better. It gets better in the second half. It's watchable at least, but you have to totally say to yourself, this. I understand. Everyone always said how Joel Schumacher had the cartoon versions. This is why they went down the cartoon version rank. This is a pure cartoon from the moment it starts. By the way, Bruce Wayne, Batman, is in this movie in the first 55 minutes for like 8 minutes. It's not. He's not even in the movie. How dare people say that it's a Jack Nicholson movie in the last one? This guy, there's penguins running around and circus clowns doing backflips and stupid dances and grenades going off, and the Catwoman falls out of a window and she's like, "Oh, I fell out of a window. Now cats eat my fingers and now I have superpowers." What? Who wrote this? Stupid movie.
Hey man, you know, I saw some haters in the comments for the last one being like, every time Winston talks, the air just gets sucked out of the room. So I'm just gonna shut up and let you rant, bro. I'm gonna let you go.
I'm telling you, if you love this movie, you will hate me this episode. And I'm not telling you that you shouldn't love it, and I understand why. By the way, as I was walking the dog last night, kind of, you know, pushing off the stink, I was like, you know, I get why people love this. I bet you, like Dorina, by the way, loves this movie. I bet you that she was her little Wednesday Addams ass when she was younger, and she was like, she's going out to the theater, and she's watching it, and she probably just fell in love with it when she was a kid. And I get it, because that goes with you, and you take that with you as you get older. So you probably have all these memories when you were a kid watching it. But if you watch this movie back for the first time, or you watch this movie for the first time ever, and you see this movie is nonsense. It is just nonsense. And what's with Latimer from the program trying to do a Christopher Walken impression? That's why he just doesn't talk anymore. Second half of the movie. Oh, Dad. Oh, I mean, do you think she's what are you doing? You don't even sound like Walken. Stupid.
So I liked that the first movie is from, and I didn't put this together until this rewatch back to back. I like that the first movie is about Gotham from the side of the poor looking up at the rich, and that's dealing with the criminal elements, and that's them trying to get through and get by being criminal, being the lower class. And this is a perspective on the criminal perspective from the rich looking down at the poor of Gotham. So I really enjoyed the duality of like the wealth inequality, and I like that looking at Gotham that way was interesting. I'm finding things I enjoy about this movie. I'm finding these things.
Hey, no, Kristian, I'm not gonna let you do this. It's a good movie. No, I'll agree with you. I don't think it's a good movie personally. Now, watching as an adult, but there are a lot of good pros here. First of all, way more detective work. Batman playing the CD, like while he's about to die, getting a CD recording, playing that for the people, looking through newspaper articles and figuring stuff out.
He right away knows something's off with the Penguin. He's like, yeah, it's his parents. I hope he finds them, which he doesn't.
They acknowledge the flaws in the first film, like Vicky just being in the cave. They acknowledge like, hey, let's fix this. So
there is, like I said, I don't hate it from start to finish. It's just that the first 45 minutes are so bad that by the time I got into the stuff that I really, because I did. My wife came in, she goes, she left. She was like, I'll watch these with you, and she was like 7
immediately. No.
And I said, I don't blame you on this one. I said, I really don't. But as I was watching it, she came in, she's like, how was it when you finished? I go, it gets better. It does get better. There's no doubt about it. It gets better. And it's what's still there is once you accept, Michelle Pfeiffer's phenomenal in the movie. She's phenomenal. But it's so stupid how she becomes Catwoman. She just falls out of a window. The cats start eating her. Then she starts doing backflips. She wrecks her apartment for some stupid reason. And then it's like, I get it. She wants to erase what the old Selena Kyle is. Give me a break. And it's just all that stuff.
She's still easily the best villain of these first 4 movies.
But I didn't understand, Coy, why she wanted to be a villain. Like that was the thing, is that there's stuff, and I think that I have to go over the same philosophy that I had last week, is that this is early 90s when this movie comes out, and there's still no real big standard to hold these kind of movies to. So they're just like, it told you guys my biggest concern, and it's still there, is that the first Batman 89 is majority of it is Batman with a Burton spin, right? And there's a lot of Burton in there with a Burton spin. This is a Burton movie that happens to have Batman in it.
Yeah,
you're not wrong.
You're not wrong at all. I would say with Michelle, with Catwoman, her objective seems actually pretty clear once she's on her path. It's just to ruin Shrek's life. That's it. That's it. And any man that is abusive to women, like she finds the one guy in the alley and she gets mad at her, being like, "Why don't you learn to sack up?"
Great. Which is great. Kicks his ass and does the whole thing, which is great.
I just didn't love this. Like Selena has played that timidness before to throw people off. I didn't love the idea of her being so weak at the start of this. I understand the narrative differentiation you're trying to make, but it's just that to me was super weird. And then also, yes, undead Catwoman. That's kind of weird. That now they say it's not supernatural. Blah blah blah. It is taken from some Golden Age comics and stuff like that of a similar scene, but.
Well, what the cats? What did the cats have? They don't even show that. Were they like nuclear cats? Like what?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Bitten by an irradiated cat. She becomes Catwoman.
No, she has like a seizure and like wakes up, and all of a sudden.
That's what I mean, like were the cats going? Were these cats going through the alleys and just biting like random people, like homeless people they were laying? And now there's like tons of cat women and cat men running around. It's like there's no explanation for it.
It was stupid.
It's stupid. And then the idea though. What I then playing into the fact that the stuff that I did like though is once you get past that stupid crap, and you have to understand that's just how she became Catwoman, and that's how the Penguin is Penguin. Fine, because the Penguin's relationship, Devito and Michelle Pheifer have phenomenal chemistry. Like and I wanted to see that we were working together a little more. And the fact that he gets mad at the end when he's trying, he's like, "You're putting all out the signs," and he lets her go with the umbrella. Oh, that was great. And then their relationship, Michelle Pheifer and Michael Keaton, that they're essentially kind of they're leading like the same kind of life. That stuff was fascinating. That was the kind of stuff that I started to really get into, and then plays it at the very end. But it was just everything leading up towards it that it just beat me down, that I couldn't enjoy it the way that I wanted to by the time I started liking it.
I agree the first act especially is rough. I do still think that Penguin and Catwoman are more interesting villains than we get in the rest of these movies. So for me, the villains are such a huge factor, especially when Batman gets so little screen time. And I know you thought I was stretching at the beginning, but opening with the parents that mirror Thomas and Martha Wayne and having it go towards if they were let go, that turns into Penguin, whereas the opening of the last film was Batman watching these two people walk down an alley with their kid, which is the opening of his story, but from the lower middle class element. Like there's a clear use of Gotham as hierarchy of wealth structure here. And especially since the power plant is about profit and billionaires and all those things, I like that Tim Burton doesn't usually touch on those things so directly. And with Batman, he can tell more of a linear story, even in his Burton-y way. I do think he got a little too much power to do whatever he wanted in the first act, where it was like, okay, we've got an hour here and it's just circus performers and penguin stuff. And like, you can make this a really tight hour, 40-minute movie and it would have been a lot better. But the problem is the first movie made so much money. He wasn't contracted. Keaton wasn't contracted. So they had a lot of wiggle in that contract.
Well, I'm going to do something that I haven't really done on the show before. I'm going to compare this to Star Wars. And so what?
Star Wars?
So Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett, I think not to this extent, but suffering from the same type of thing, right? It's like there's a lot of great stuff inside of the story itself, but some of the execution is just a bit off, because everything that you mentioned, the stuff, the parallels with Bruce's family, like Gotham, the idea of how the Catwoman and getting them all involved, I have no issue with. It's the idea, like none of these people are real. Like even though Jack Napier is not bad, is super cartoonish. But there's something about I bought that him and Grissom, like he was this gangster. It was like a Dick Tracy gangster, but he was still a gangster, and I bought it, and they set up those rules. This is just like a cartoon that pops off, and there's no, like, even Pee Wee Herman in the beginning when he's his dad, he's got the monocle and he's like, and it's like it's the entire thing, the way it's set up, and he sends him down the river, and they it's like I'm supposed to, oh yeah, I would have done the same thing to my penguin kid. No, he's a baby.
It's a child.
Scumbags. I'm like, and then this movie, what I will say, this movie does things now, like is dark. Like the penguin's like, we're gonna kill all the kids, and the one guy goes, killing kids, isn't that a little? And he's like, there are some great moments. I'm not gonna say that every single thing in this movie isn't bad, and I really think if the first 50 minutes wasn't like getting a sledgehammer to the ball bag, that I would probably like this movie a lot better, because the stuff with Selena and Michael Keaton, or Selena and Bruce in Wayne Manor,
the mistletoe speeches, man, beautiful.
All of it, all the stuff with them is great. Even like, even the end is like, Selena, you're fired. Like it's like stupid stuff like that at the end worked, and I thought he was fine. The relationship with him and Penguin was fine. It's just, I'm telling you, man, it's just that first 45 minutes. It was like, brutal.
Kristian, I gotta ask you a question. Have you seen Next Friday? Have you seen all the Friday movies?
Yeah, I've seen the first two.
Okay, so next Friday's the second one. Okay.
Yeah, I know, but I haven't seen it in a long time, so I don't know how much reference I'm going to First one, my neck.
Exactly, right? The only reason why I ask is because there's a moment in the middle of the second one where Craig gets in a fight with Pinky, and they're fighting over the gun and all that stuff, and he's got the gun to his face, and he's still like, and you fire! Like, he's still firing somebody while he has a gun. That's what it felt like when Shrek was like, hey, Selena, you're fired. About to die, but you're fired.
Well, you know he's dead. You know he's dead the second Bruce takes his mask off. The second Bruce takes, like, he's not gonna survive. And I did forget though, when the Penguin at the very end of the movie, like I couldn't remember how he ate it, right? And I'm like, okay, here he goes flying down, and it's gruesome. Like the green blood is flying out of him. I think that is one of the main problems, and it's probably something that I'm guilty of telling people not to do last week, and that's asking too many questions of how, right? Because there's just so much, like, why does he have green coming out? How did he become a penguin from two human parents? Like, and all this stuff. Why did the penguins take him in? How was he able to just control them with the mind control thing, but yet still told them, like,
him? Yeah,
all that stuff. It's like nothing was explained, and it's just like, well, just kind of it's the penguin. That's why. Penguin.
Penguins are chilling in the sewers. Like, that's also a thing that they're just down in the sewers. Like, they said, screw the zoo. We're just going to hang down here with this guy.
And it's got the same problem, Coy, that I remember what we talked about last week, where and it was not subtle, but it was like we brought it up because it was a moment that stood out like a sore thumb, where Jack Nicholson throws the pen into the guy's throat, and nobody really does anything, right? That happens every 3 minutes in this movie. Like,
Gotham is just, and they, at one point the mayor's like, citizens of Gotham, I know it looks like we're not doing anything, but trust us, we're doing a lot. And it's like,
he's giving a speech, and someone just goes, thanks for the baby, and then jumps in a sewer,
and no cops react to the baby.
No, and the clown's like, hey, look at this. He's like, I'm going into the sewer. It's like, grab him. Do not let him get to that sewer.
This is a speech. There are cops everywhere.
He's just and then like it's just so over the top with Danny DeVito, and he's like, and it's like,
I think the reason I liked it as a kid is still the reason I like it as an adult is that everyone's doing a lot with their characters. Like, I really like what Keaton's doing with Batman here. I think he found his Bruce Wayne and Batman duality more in this one. I really like his talks with Michelle Pfeiffer as Bruce Wayne feel different than his conversations as Batman. I like his like bat trance. It feels more like methodical. Penguin is obviously, Danny DeVito's going nuts and like seems to be relishing in every moment. Like, he really got to play.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to me like Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. Like, that definitely, I mean, I watched this movie throughout my childhood, and it's definitely like probably detrimentally affected my perception of like what I want a woman like that performance. Like, good God, she is perfect.
Yeah. There's a lot that works. I'm not going to lie. Like, after watch, like going into it, and even texting with you guys in the first 45 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be painful.
Can we release the text, bro? You were going at this movie.
That was 5 minutes in. That was 5 minutes in, and finally it's settled after like 5, because I started to time it. Once we got to like 52 minutes, I'm like, I have just added up. Bruce Wayne Batman has like 9 minutes of screen time so far in 52 minutes. Then he starts doing a lot more. I did like the scene when Penguin takes over the Batmobile, and it's a little bit, he's a little more vulnerable, and you don't really necessarily find out how. And even though I like it, pretty stupid, where they're going through this entire thing where they're rewiring the whole system, and they're doing that, and then it's just this dumb little thing at the end of that Bruce just has to take off and he can control it again. It's like, why didn't they just stick that thing on the bottom? why are they spending all this time rewiring and doing all that? It's stupid. And yeah,
the fact that he's punching through a metal floor and then he can snatch it off the thing is also very weird.
Also, I imagine there's either no armor under the car, or if there was, it wouldn't have been able to attach. So, like, what was the point of disarmoring the car at all?
And it's just it's funny because you're right, Coy. Danny DeVito is having a lot of fun with the role. What Burton directed and what he wanted to, DeVito delivers on it. Like, it's one of those things. I feel we're having the same conversation with a lot of these movies. There's not really a bad performance, although, and like I said, Latimer from the program, who I like, just doing that ridiculous accent, and like, why? Like why? But other than that, it's like the performances are they're good. And I think that what I really liked, what I wanted to see more of, when you have that conversation, like the Vicky Vale stuff, when they really got deep into, he's talking about her being a photographer and then talking to it with Alfred, like going into that and the kind of the breakdown of who he is, it's missing for like an hour.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really get the stuff that really works doesn't kick in. By the time you get there, you're like, oh, I'm exhausted. But I know, I'm telling you, what I will say to this, for those people that are watching this right now and that are surely commenting, what I would like to know is if you saw this as a child, that if it still sticks with you that way, or did you watch it, in your teenage years or in your early 20s or whenever. That's what I'm curious about, because I feel that a lot of people who loved this movie it's hard to watch it with different eyes right now, because I never liked this movie. It was as a kid, so it was easier for me to continue to take a crap on it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, let's go ahead.
You're good, Coy.
I've had a harder time rewatching these now that we've had such an abundance of, like, I love the Nolan films. I love how we've made the post-Nolan movies have really matured in a way that feel like they're making them for all ages, not just for kids or just for adults, except for the Joker, obviously. But like, most of these movies aren't made with an audience of blank in mind. They're made as films. And people like Scorsese and whoever can argue till the cows come home, but like, these are independent of the comic books entertainment that has moral fiber and value and performances and artistry and writing. And like, I love what Danny Elfman and Tim Burton did to make this feel like its own little universe, but I do struggle to appreciate some of the choices that do alienate people. And I don't think any of this could exist today. And I think a lot of people like that. Like, I saw one hyper aggressive comment last week, some dude like yelling about like he doesn't want Batman to be realistic. And I think that's because of these movies. He's like, I only like Gotham, Batman, and Batman Returns. That's fair. It's like, well, I'm happy those exist for you, but the rest of us would rather most of the people get something out of these movies. And most people aren't going to get anything out of Gotham. I didn't get anything out of Gotham. No disrespect to everyone that worked hard on Gotham. I want things to feel like it's a blend of worlds, not an alienating world. And if you hadn't grown up with Returns, I think this would be very alienating.
Well, this is what I like about what you just said there. You showed respect. You were nice, and we should all be nice to people. And I'm definitely going to be nice to you. I'll be nice to Winston. Speaking of be nice to Winston, how about those Cowboys, huh? All right, DraftKings, everybody. DraftKings. 4 teams remain in the NFL playoffs, and one of those teams, not the Cowboys. And that means only 4 teams left for you to bet on at DraftKings Sportsbook. Will a referee step in the way? We don't know, but the Cowboys do. Hey, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, counting down to Super Bowl 56. New customers can get 56-1 odds on any team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. You're not a new customer? Well, you can experience in the conference championship with the same game parlays. Combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout. The more legs you add, the more money you can win. Great thing about DraftKings is it's safe, it's secure, it's reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash wherever you want. So if you're like the Cowboys and you're going to be watching at home, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now using the code Big Thing and get 56-1 odds on any NFL team. Bet just $5 and win $280 in free bets if your team wins. Not the Cowboys. That's promo code Big Thing for 56-1 odds at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New customers only. Minimum of $5 deposit and a $1 wager required. I can see you, Winston. I'm not going to put you on the air until you put that down. So there you go. What's wrong?
Such a little bitch.
What happened? What happened?
Such a little bitch.
Listen to me. You understand that I've had to deal with the Giants all year. What are you talking about?
Look, man.
At least you had a chance.
What did you do, Winston?
You had a chance to blow it in the playoffs.
No, it's just I thought we were here to talk about Batman Returns, and you're just gonna be Christian Petty Returns is what shit is. No. I just wanted to put together 2 things that stunk.
You know.
Hey, the halftime show is gonna be great though. That halftime show announcement's got me excited. I don't know about the game, but
Yeah.
Okay. All I will say to the last thing we were talking about
Yes.
I do think that Coy kind of hits the right on the nose, and we're gonna get even more of that once we get to Schumacher, because he has his own stylized way of doing this,
Yeah.
and kind of leaning more towards Batman 66 and the Adam West flair in that regard, just brought to the modern age, if you really kind of look at it. So I think that kind of proves that there is a Batman for everyone, in the same way that we said that about Spider-Man. I don't really F's with the Toby ones quite as much. We know Coy really doesn't. I mean, we do more now because of No Way Home, but like for me, it was Holland. For Coy, it was Garfield. So
Yeah.
it's just, that is kind of what this evolution has become. But again, if you can make it more realistic, then it's something that we could actually believe could potentially happen.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
That's what happened. I think that's what Nolan did so well, and I think that's what a lot of the movies have done. And it's funny though, as much as I'm kind of going off on the movie, as I did tell you that there is a lot of stuff that they do that gets darker. There's some definitely darker stuff in here that I think works a lot, and it does make me nervous going into Batman Returns, because I probably haven't seen Batman Returns. It's got to be over 10 to 15 years, right? It has to be. So last night I turned it on just for like 5 minutes after I finished this one to see, is it a palate cleanser or what? Because I remember seeing it in the theater and enjoying it, because I remember as a kid, I just didn't like Batman Returns. I thought it was too over the top and I just didn't like it. But then I don't know what happened, because I watched 5 minutes of Batman Returns last night, and that's next week. They give no F's about trying to be subtle on how cheesy and ridiculous.
Oh, Batman Forever?
Dude,
Batman Forever?
it starts off and he's just like, do you want a sandwich? He says to him. And then I'm like, oh no. And then he goes, I'll get drive through. I'm like, oh, that's okay. I can't watch this one. And I said to myself, oh, so there is a world that next week I'm going to be talking about how I think I like Batman Returns better. I don't know yet. I got to see, but there's this stuff. It's the serious stuff in Batman Returns and the stuff that works inside of the character development that they worked on in the 89 version that did work for me in this movie.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to come back and say you like Returns over Forever. I think it's the opposite for me, and I think part of it is, again, just make your decision. Are you going to go with the more realistic thing, which I think there was no Nolan for Burton to look at. So He was doing his own thing.
You're saying there's too much. It's not consistent, is what you're saying, right?
Right. They were trying to find it, and since you're trying to find it, you're not there. I think Schumacher saw it and said, "Nah, I like 66, so we'll keep the better tech, things like that, because we have it.
Right.
But we're taking it back, and that's what Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones. Harvey Dent is never that silly, and they make him so silly.
So goofy,
match. And the Riddler is only really that silly in the Adam West show, and in the comic books, the Riddler got silly because of Jim Carrey, but like foundationally, the character is a lot more menacing and a nemesis in the way he makes his menacing trademark today, 2022. Right. But like the way his riddles and stuff, they're a lot more violent. They're a lot more under like your skin, uncomfortable. And so what the Riddler is now is an amalgamation. And that's why I'm excited for Paul Dano's Riddler, because that's how I see the Riddler. So it's going to be really interesting to look at the Batman Forever take compared to Tim Burton so fresh, just like it was so fresh between Batman and Batman. To me, I still enjoy this movie a little bit more than Batman 89, personally.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not on that page, but I will definitely say that watching, I think that Winston is 100% right, because it wasn't just Schumacher. Obviously, it was the studio, because I would like to see the numbers as far as box office goes on. And I'm going to look it up in a second here, but what this movie did as compared to the first one, because they probably thought, oh, it's been 3 years since, I believe this came out in 92. It's been 3 years since the movie came out. And the first one was such a major hit. And I think Winston also nailed it before when he's talking about Burton. 3 years is a lot of time to kind of soak up. Remember what that movie did in 89 and the kind of box office it did and the phenomenon that it was. And then Burton's doing some more stuff in between. Then it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Look, we didn't have the contract. we got the contract now, but this is how I want to make the movie. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to throw my style in it. I want to do that. And I made you a lot of money last time. And then if it didn't make the kind of money that they thought, then they probably said, you know what, it's a little too weird.
And that was the thing. So to answer that question, just real quick on these four, so the 2 Burton, 2 Schumacher, you had 89 at the most at 411.6. Forever, actually at number 2 with 336.6. This at number 3 with 266.9, and then Robin at 238.2.
See,
so
that's what I mean. So can you let's see, can you
that drop off's pretty insane between 4 and 266 for a sequel. Like, I mean, 400 was astronomical, especially then. Like, no movies are making 400 million. It's interesting how we look at numbers now, and it's like, if it doesn't make 400 million in the first 2 weeks, it's a bomb because we've adjusted our perception. But 400 million then was insane. To drop by like almost half, like 40% like that to 260, that's pretty crazy.
Hey, you said 260, is that worldwide?
I did a quick search. It says 266.9. What you went to Mojo?
I'm looking at Mojo. And it says for franchise lifetime gross for The Dark Knight, it is number 1, and that's 533, 345. And I think that's
you looked up everything. I just looked up the 4 OGs, and so Returns was 266. Yeah.
So what I have for Batman, and you're doing worldwide. So Batman, the original Batman, did 251 worldwide, right?
I think 400 from my memory.
411.
Okay, it's not listing international here. And then Batman Forever, it's not listing the international for some reason on Box Office Mojo. So either way, but you like you said, significant drop off from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, and then they're probably like, no, people didn't like the weird stuff. It didn't work. We got to make it lighter. We got to go back to the Adam West kind of goofy stuff, cartoonish. Let's bring in Schumacher. Let's have some more fun. They tried to get Keaton. They wanted Keaton to come back because it is in continuation with everything, a lot of the characters and all that. But he was like, no, I'm not doing it without Burton. But they worked together well, and I think that you're right. It's an inconsistent tone a lot of the times because there's nobody that's real for the first like 45 minutes of this movie.
I mean, again, I appreciated having more Batman action.
Yes,
that was cool. But like, even and Coy, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. I mean, I know that all of these villains will use different gangs to do what they need, and the Penguin has used a circus before and other things and blah blah blah. But even that was off-putting when it's like, we just had a clown villain, and now the next dude is using clowns as his henchmen. That seems like a big miss in my mind. Again, the Penguin has used things like this before, so I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. It just seemed very jarring.
Too soon.
Okay, you got me. It's been a minute, but you finally got that was good, man. That was good. I don't even know my train of thought anymore. You broke me.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from, and you're not wrong. And that's an interesting thing that continues into the next 2 movies. All 4 of these movies have this weird like henchman gang thing where Batman's always fighting and then Batman and Robin are fighting, and then Batman, Robin, and Batgirl are fighting a myriad of henchmen in strange hijinks. By the 4th one, they're fighting like the Linkin Park set in the like Blacklight Mafia, like that, like the One Step Closer music video. Like it gets progressively weirder that their groups are so not aligned with the actual villains. But I do think that in the comic books, they do tend to be more in sync with the villains. Like the Penguin's more of a mafioso dude. He's got more like henchmen.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was the other part that was weird to me. And I get it. I guess it was just Burton going for it. And again, if you kind of look back at the old stuff, there would be a lot of like bird themed stuff with things going on with him. It's not that the Penguin doesn't do that. But yeah, he really is his own version of a twisted mob boss. Yeah. And you sort of get that with him running for mayor and stuff like that. But
it's so tied to Burton.
But all of that, even like trying to go over what the motivation is for this character, right? Because at first he says he wants to find out about his parents, and he wants to legit find out who he is. And so he's trying to go back and forth and battle with himself that he was a human, because he says, I'm not a penguin. My name is Oswald Cobblepot. And he comes in, he has the whole thing. But then after that, he starts sitting around doing the work that he's doing. And it seemed, at least from rewatching it, that he wanted to kind of stay out of it and do his own thing, do some research. And I don't know what the hell he was doing. He's like, I got an agenda. I can't be bothered with this, Max. And Max is the one who goes, because he's the crooked one who wants him to run for mayor. But what was the Penguin doing? What was he doing before that? Like, what was he trying to do? Is like, we know he discovered his identity. So that part we found. But after that, and Batman drives by and he's still screwing around, it looks like was he cooking up a plan? What was he doing? It looks like Max Schreck was the one who got him all crooked again, because then by the end he's like, I'm not a man, I'm an animal. He's did that whole thing, and it's just it just nothing was consistent, and it was all over the place.
What was weird for me was the sheer horniness of the Penguin. Yeah. Now I sort of get it, because he's technically a 40-year-old virgin. He's been in a sewer.
Sure.
Like
they say poontang in this. They say poontang.
It's not just that, dude. When he goes upstairs and Catwoman's chilling, he goes, "The exact pussy I was looking for."
Yeah,
that I was like, dude, what?
It's so funny. My 10-year-old had walked into the room, not during that part, but like walked when Catwoman and Batman were fighting on the roof, and she was watching that scene. And she's like, all right, I'm going to sleep now. And then that scene popped up later. I'm like, thank God she wasn't in there for that. Like that
when he's in the last villain speech where he's yelling about erogenous zones, I was like, I wouldn't want to answer that question to a kid. Like, I would rather not have them ask me.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of adult stuff. And I think that's probably going back to that conversation that we had earlier about Warner Brothers going, like it was skewed to, like, there's a lot of adult humor in this. Like we're trying to get the kids more involved, because business wise, kids are buying the toys. And
McDonald's was like a co-producer. Like McDonald's
I thought that was on 3, which is why
they wanted to be on 2, and Burton was like, screw you. And then once Burton left, they were like, okay, we're gonna double down, and this is full on a McDonald's Batman. And then by 4, it was the McDonald's show.
Yeah, and there was and we'll get into that next week. But I
still have my mug from 3. It's dope.
Mine broke.
Warner Brothers mishandled the property tremendously, and I also think that because we weren't in a phase where they used to sign people on the way that they do now, right? Like if it was today, and and Burton was the kind of director that he was, you're like, okay, in 88 when they signed him in, or 87 whenever they signed him up to do it, you go, all right, look, this thing is a hit. We want to sign you up, but you're going to be contracted to do the second movie. Should it come, if it does well, and we want to utilize that, you got to come back and we have the writers. We're going to make you basically have him follow your thing. But because he had every right to make the movie he wanted to make, right. because he had the power to do so, and that's the movie he wanted to make. But it doesn't mean that we all have to like it. But I will tell you, I am shocked. I always thought that I was, before I was doing movie talk and all that stuff, I always thought that everybody was on the same page with me, and I thought everybody hated Batman Returns, and it is not the case. Like, I can't even tell you how many people love this movie. And last week, and I think like you, Coy, there were people in the comment section last week saying how much they loved this movie more so than 89. I respect your opinion, but it is baffling to me.
I just think it's everyone's got their own, and Winston touched on this a second ago, but like everyone has their own archetypal version of the character, and it depends on what your entry point to the character was. So just like with Spider-Man, my entry point is going to be a mix of 60s comics and 90s comics, and that's why to me Andrew Garfield represents that. But if you got in the 60s or 70s, or maybe even just got in through the animated series, maybe Tobey's more your guy. If you got into modern comics, Tom Holland's probably your guy. And I feel like with Batman, if you hadn't read the comics or you'd only seen the Adam West show, Tim Burton's going to be like, hey, it's that thing I like, but it's a little darker and edgier, and this is the late 80s, and things are about to get dark and edgy. Because if you look at where culture was in the late 80s, it was that come down from the amazing peak of cocaine and money and wealth and awesomeness, and it was about to get really grungy and really dark, and things were twisting. And I feel like it was the exact perfect time for Tim Burton to take something that was shiny and bright and like pizzowie and add his darkness to it. I think the reason Batmania struck was the time, the place, the emotional tendency of the culture. Everything led to Batmania, and that wasn't the case even 3 years later when he added so many different darker elements that was so Tim Burton. And then if you fast forward 20 years, you look at something like Dumbo, which is a different, calmer Tim Burton. That doesn't do as well because now the culture, the space, the people, we're all very different in what we're looking at in our art. And then juxtaposing that, You've got someone like James Gunn making The Suicide Squad. He's got just as much control as Tim Burton did with the first Batman, but these aren't characters that people have a lot of access to. So you don't have three people like us with three different perspectives on Batman. You've got, who is this guy? Who is this guy? Who is this girl? Oh, James Gunn's going to tell me his take on it. I have no prior association. I trust this director. Let's go nuts. Make a lot of money. So I don't think Tim Burton today would get the reins of a franchise that McDonald wants to wield. I think if they wanted to do that, that's why Edgar Wright left Ant-Man. So it's a one-of-one experience that's happened like once in a generation. It's just this was the first time to happen on scale, and then the sequel showed what happens when it goes too far.
Yeah. I mean, Coy, I think you're kind of hitting the nail right on the head with where was your entry point. I think what gave Burton permission, it was still very colorful because Batman's costume was more of a blue than a black. Remember, Death in the Family happens in 88. So right as they're kind of ramping up and starting to shoot the film and all that kind of stuff, you literally have a Robin get murdered by the Joker. So you're given permission for this to be darker because you were literally murdering a teenager.
And that was by the people. Remember, Death in the Family, people
it was the phone call thing. They had to call and vote, and it won by a narrow margin. So the people in 88 were like, kill Robin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. When Burton was pitching, when we actually have a sound clip when Burton was pitching some of this stuff, he pitched a whole bunch of ideas for Penguin, and there was one guy who's the only voice in the room, and he was the right one, and he said,
"Do me a favor, please. Get out of here. Get out of here, man. Shit."
Yeah. But it's
leaked audio.
That guy was fired.
Yo, can we talk about the fact that he goes, "At least my nose is a gushing blood"? What are you talking about? It just bites a dude's nose off.
But that's the kind of stuff. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's the kind of stuff that is very similar to what we were just talking about. That nobody's reacting to the baby getting taken. Here is Max Schreck trying to pitch this guy as the next mayor, and he bites the nose of that dude, the Tim Robbins 99-cent store guy, and then he bites the guy's nose, and it gushes blood, and people are just like, all right, let's go clean that up, and nobody is saying, hey Max, this might be a bad idea.
and that's all four of the OGs, and that's why I think Nolan had to come in when he did. If you look at the timeline, it's actually crazy how close to George Clooney Batman Nolan Batman is really, because it's a completely different, like, let's shake off the Gotham is apathetic to crime and makes it like Batman's trying to stop crime, not acknowledge crime. So if you watch it's going to be so interesting when we switch from 4 to 5, even more from 2 to 3, because you see a zeitgeist shift in what comic books are. Because that movie was only a couple years before Iron Man, which led to this modern era. Right. And it's really interesting to see this movie was 92. Blade was 98. That's only 6 years. And at this point, we don't even know what comic book movies are, to the point where it's like that can happen because it's just a comic movie. We're allowing mustache twirling. And then 6 years later, we've got Stephen Dorff and Wesley Snipes making a thriller that turns into what the Marvel Universe becomes because it trusts its audience.
Yes, remember though the reason, but Blade had a step up on and had an advantage over Batman Returns because Blade's playing with a very small budget and Blade's playing with not a lot of expectations. And
it's my Suicide Squad thing. It's expectation of character.
Yeah, well, but even the Suicide Squad still has expectations inside of its DC brand. It's still in that. It's still in the as you mentioned, the way the comic book movies are today, as opposed to 6 years after this movie. And there's not a lot of movies that are around comic book movies to hold standards to. I mean, even when you talk about the modern comic boom, that's not the one that is brought up, which it should be because it was 98 or whenever it came out. Where X-Men is usually the one that's brought up in 2000, right? But it was Blade who could show a lot of that and make what Blade did was made like a cool movie. It made it cool, and a lot of people didn't realize it was a comic book movie. But comparing that off of Batman Returns, where there's like as much as I give crap to this movie, the pressure that Burton is under, regardless, because he's deciding he's going to put his vision on it and he's going to make it darker and he's going to combine this bizarre take and this adult humor. And he has to prove to Warner Brothers and everybody else that it's going to make as much as the first one. It doesn't. He takes a risk by doing that. And ultimately, I think that's why he lost the third movie. He probably didn't care. Payday wise, he probably cared, but in the long run, he probably didn't care. But he did his 2 movies and then he walked off and did his other stuff.
I do think this is still like Catwoman is still why the whole time I'm watching the movie, I'm waiting for more Catwoman.
Yes.
And I do think that is a huge saving grace in the film to the point where they added that last scene
movie.
in the movie after they wrapped. Like there were test audiences that didn't want her to be dead. So that last shot of Michelle Pfeiffer's head lifting up and even Keaton walking down the alley was filmed like 6 months after wrap. They literally like went back to the set. I think, and the Catwoman Halle Berry movie was, they didn't get Michelle Pfeiffer back. They rewrote it. And then that movie happened years later, which is such a crazy, like what a difference of scale. But to me, this is why it's a little bit over the first Batman for me, is because there's nothing quite in the first Batman for me that equals the power of what Michelle Pfeiffer brought. Every moment, even the demure kind of small playing it little Selena Kyle, which does bother me. I get why they needed a duality like the Jacqueline Hyde of it that they wanted to do for the Tim Burton levels. Like I think another director wouldn't have made her as demure to juxtapose the madness, and I think it was a bit much. But once she was Catwoman, I really enjoyed how it played with the Bat-Cat mythology, it played with the sexuality, it played with all those things, but it never felt like we couldn't have our own Catwoman movie. And I feel like as early as 92, that was unheard of. Like that was a character that like they really let a villain woman take away Batman's luster, and it was really interesting, and I wanted more of that. So I honestly, that's why it's a little above Batman for me.
Yeah, it shows you the power of Michelle Pfeiffer as an actress for sure, and like she definitely stands out. It is her movie. There's no doubt about it. For the entire the whole thing's about it. Go ahead, Winston.
Well, I was just gonna say it's interesting because she wasn't originally cast. It was Annette Bening, but she got pregnant, so they had to recast. So Michelle had auditioned originally for Vicky Vale. They said no. She auditioned again for Catwoman along a slew of other like superstars, like including Meryl Streep, who they were like, "Nah, she's too old already." All that stuff, and so Annette Bening gets
old.
Yeah, I know. It's wild that they were saying that, but like what? Okay, they had what? Demi Moore, Nicole Kidman, Susan Sarandon, Meryl Streep, Brooke Shields. Let's see, Sigourney Weaver, Jodie Foster, Gina Davis. These are all women that went out for the role. Wow. And again, to come back to Michelle, who did such a phenomenal job. I agree with you, Coy. My main beef with her is just that opening sequence and then her being apparently undead. That was the weird thing to see her fall. How, even if it was, some people were like, it's only 6 stories. If someone falls out of a 6-story building
on their back,
if they're not dead, they are paralyzed.
There's gonna be problems. But it's more of the reasoning, a lot of different reasonings, right? It's why the supernatural cats, were they supernatural? Did that happen? Like why she starts smashing around her apartment for some reason, I guess because she's tired of her mundane life. And then like it's not the way she plays the character, because it's just a way I think we could have led to how she got there better. Yeah, and because once she is Catwoman, once she's doing the backflips and she's fighting them and she's doing the motivation behind that balance where we see Bruce is the one who, even though he in this movie he straps a guy to the champion and over the top, by the way,
blows him up.
Throws him in the sewer and blows him up and smiles about it. So
the kill count,
more bat murder.
Yeah, but he's still, and then at the very end, he's like, let's just bring him in. It's like, well, you didn't have that problem with the guy from over the top. You blew him up in a.
He turned the whole Batmobile around on a stilt and set a dude that was just breathing fire that wasn't even touching the car and set the booster on him and set him on fire.
Yeah, he's ruthless. But anyway, the two of them in looking at the difference where she's all about revenge, and when he changed that, and the beginning of it was the death of his parents, and to have revenge on the crime in the city, but he's balancing it out as he does more. And I did love the idea of like when she says, "I'm tired of wearing a mask," and he's like, "Me too." And all that, and the way that and he even says how similar they are. That's the stuff that's fantastic in this movie. Like, and I want to be clear about that. There is stuff inside of this movie that is fantastic. It's just,
that whole beat up the apartment sequence was worth it for me, for the hello there and to hell here sign, because I love that. Like, Tim Burton gives you a visual neon of like, this isn't subtle, this is how I'm feeling.
Right.
And like, to me, it worked because we had to, for the Tim Burton-ness of the rest of the movie, it had to be that big of a change. But even the Nolan Anne Hathaway, the scene where she does that Christopher Reeve moment where, like, you know, the iconic Christopher Reeve gif where he stands up and he transitions from Clark into Superman, and you see how good Reeves was as Superman. Anne Hathaway has a really great moment where she transitions from Selena to Catwoman in that robbery where she takes off the maid outfit. I would have loved to have had that Selena, but it wouldn't have fit in this universe. Just like we got Jack Napier because that Joker needed to exist for Tim Burton's universe. So I accept those things that I don't see as the comic character, just like we talked last week about, like, it's not the comics, it's a Tim Burton comic. So I'm okay with it.
But that's what it is. And that you're absolutely right. That's exactly the way you have to look at it and say, and I'm okay with it, or it just doesn't work for me, right? And that's I think where I land. I think that's you're on the other side of that, obviously, Coy, and I think your reasoning for it made a ton of sense. But I think that there's just some stuff inside of the way, inside of the execution that I could have, probably would have liked a little bit better. Winston,
I mean, I'm feeling the same way that Coy is, and I think what had to bring me back was just remembering that. In the same way you look at every different iteration. So like Ultimate Spider-Man, Green Goblin isn't a dude in a suit with a super soldier serum. Dude, it becomes an actual winged goblin. And instead of throwing pumpkin bombs, he's breathing fire. Right. So it's kind of the same thing. She's not a thief. If you look in this, she's not once doing any cat burglar type stuff. She is only doing what she can to get men that abuse their power against women and to ruin Shrek's life. That's it. She blows up a Shrek department store. Right. And she even lets the cops run. She's like, get out of here, or I'm gonna kill you. And they run off. She blows up the store. No one gets hurt, and that's her main MO.
He's like, come on, honey, we only get paid $300.
Take away $300.
You're overpaid. She also had to actually use that whip. That was all actually Michelle Pheifer. My God.
It was.
Yeah, like there's the motivation from her when she becomes Catwoman. I get it. Of why she but I think that bringing up that Anne Hathaway, Selena Kyle thing, right? If she was already undercover working for Max Schreck at that point, and something has happened inside of it that led to that, I probably would have been like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense to it, and the investigation more so. It's just the two origin stories, and even the origin story of the Penguin just doesn't work for me. He's a little baby that gets pushed into the river, and then the Penguins start taking care of him. How do the Penguins start taking care of him? It's just like, well, it's a Tim Burton crazy movie. That's why. Oh, okay.
And that's why I'm really, I know we're doing this on the road to the Batman, but I'm really excited for a new generation to discover what I think of as the Penguin, which I assume is what they're doing with Colin Farrell. I mean, he's getting his own show. I think they're going to lead into the organized crime angle. I think they're going to lead into all these, because Gotham is the character that Batman lives in, and it looks like that's what Matt Reeves is building. And I think it's going to really show people what the comic Riddler is, the comic Penguin is, the comic everything is. And it's not going to work for everyone, especially people whose entry point is Tim Burton's Batman. And that's what's amazing about this is we're living in an age where this movie was in 92. We're only in 2022. It's been 30 years and we've had this big of a revolution of character choices. But because the Batman is coming out in March doesn't mean that you can't put in your Batman Returns Blu-ray. It didn't erase it. Stop complaining on the internet. You should do more things with your time. Find a hobby. There's a lot of beauty in the world, bro. Watch your Penguin. It's fine. But being upset at other people getting their Penguin or getting other people to explore new stuff, that's where I have a problem, because it's just a waste
agree with
of your
you.
experience.
Like I said, as I mentioned before, I know how many people love this movie. Do I understand it? No. Am I going to attack you for liking it? I don't understand it, but hell no, enjoy it, love it. Like if you go back and you get an enjoyment out of this, and you're rewatching this, and it brought in those memories that I had when I was watching 89, and that's what you had for this, that's great. What I will say is that this version, even though I still don't love the movie, gave me a better appreciation for both the Venom movies. I don't like the movies, but you really can tell when you look at this movie and you look at the 90s superheroes movies, that's what Venom 1 and 2 are. They are an homage to those 90s superhero films.
100%.
That's what it is. And you can feel that in it because of that. And it's a ballsy move. It's a ballsy move to go buck the system of what we're used to with the way the genre is today, and putting it to that throwback. And it's probably why it's had the success that it's had in both films.
Because there are people that want that and aren't getting it, and now they are with a $1 billion Venom franchise.
Right. And I think again, we're going to talk about a little later. You're talking about the Flash, and you're going to get both Ben back for one last time. You'll get Keaton back for what we're assuming is one last time, and again,
he's back for Batgirl also.
Yeah, he's back again.
That's right. He's back for Batgirl. I forgot about that. All that to be said, it further stamps that whatever your flavor of a particular superhero world, they can all coexist. And the thing that always blows my mind, I get it if it's not your forte, but for anybody that's a comic fan at all, we've known about multiple Earths, multiple universes, and that's the thing. They all look different. That's supposed to be kind of the point. And I think to that point, you can respectfully, as you've done, Kristian, be like, this is not my cup of tea. I prefer this one over here. Right. But they should be able to fully coexist.
Of course, every single movie that you guys it drives me nuts when people are like, you're wrong. This is a terrible movie. It's like, no one's wrong. It's like it's the same thing. Like, again, for that person who's writing in the comments here today about why they loved Batman Returns, you and I just had a very different experience watching it. But you're not wrong. I don't have your experiences when you watch it. I don't know what it was in your life and your childhood and everything else too, that you responded to it very differently. Your senses and sensibilities very different than mine. It doesn't mean you're wrong. That's
why I personally don't like talking about things I don't enjoy, is because every single person's every single day of their life led to a different experience of that day watching that piece of art. So it's really weird that people like to attack other people's experience of things, especially when, like Winston was saying with comic books, writers have arcs and then they leave. These characters specifically in comic books are meant to be things that can be wielded by different personalities and types. Like Batman's been around for so many years. It's impossible to have one type of Batman. And I guarantee in 15 years, maybe less, we'll have campy Batman again for the people that want it. And that's why I don't understand the Venom hate. Because Kristian brought up a good point. There's an entire market of people that want a Batman Returns style movie that weren't getting it. And I think that's why I ended up doing so much press for Venom, is I'm able to enjoy the 90s movies, especially with Venom, who's such a 90s character. Like, that character wouldn't necessarily work in the Tom Holland universe, which is why I should find Andrew Garfield. And that character works in that 90s style movie better than I think Batman does. But I can still watch Batman Returns and appreciate it because I can see what that is.
For sure. And I think that either way, you look at what Burton was able to do with these two movies. He created a lot of history. And whether I like the movie or not, I'm never going to argue that even the Penguin and Michelle Pheifer are iconic performances inside of the Batman franchise as a whole. There's no arguing that, whether you think it's goofy or weird or doesn't fit into your version of Batman or not. You can't argue it. I certainly can't. Do I think it's ridiculous that in the middle of a speech he's chowing down on a fish and no one thinks that's weird? Yeah, I think it's stupid, but it's still, he's iconic, and he made it. And he's terrifying. He's really scary. Like, he's a creepy, scary little thing. And I understood how he could become so menacing, because he's even more maniacal than Joker is, because he's an animal. He's like he'll kill you in a heartbeat. He wants to kill kids, and he's just a broken down dude. And that's why, like, I will say, as much as I went off on the first half of the movie, the second half, if someone had to tell me that I had to watch this thing again, I'd say, can I just watch the last hour? I got it already. I understand.
That's fair.
Let me watch the last hour, and then I think that I watched this movie in a very different light.
Because the last hour, if I remember, is right around where they kidnap the Ice Princess or whatever her name is, and she ends up getting killed. And it seems to genuinely come together at that point between Bruce and Selina's romance kicking off, and the Penguin, now that he's lost his bid for mayor, is just like, screw it, I'm blowing everybody up.
Less bits. It's less bits and more story. That's what it is. There's big set pieces and there's big stuff like that, but it's less like, look how quirky and kooky this is. It's like, no, this is our story now. Like, we don't really get into the story until like 53 minutes in. That's when it really starts to go. Once it's about 50, once you get to like the 53-minute mark, then you're like, oh, okay. I don't think that I'd have as much of an issue with this movie if it was just like from that point on, like the 53-minute mark. And it's a short movie. It's only 2 hours, which is crazy. They say like that's a short movie, but compared to today, like the rumors are that the Batman's going to be close to 3 hours, which is great, but it's crazy.
$255.
Is that what it is? Is it $255?
Yeah.
I love Batman and I love superhero movies, but God, can we please stop this trend of just going for 3 to go for 3?
Hey man, Venom 2, 89 minutes. You got options. You want versatility? You got options.
But here's the don't do that. That's one thing for theme. That's another thing for time. I would rather see Batman than Venom in a movie. So I would rather have a Batman movie that's clocking at most 120. 3 hours. Like I'll
you gotta be a detective. Detective work takes time.
You're gonna be exhausted. In that tone for 3 hours. Whew.
Do you know how many mysteries we've done solved in Knives Out in an episode of True Detective in an hour and a half? Miss me with that. I need 3 hours to detective work.
True Detective's 8 hours. True Detective takes from the top to the bottom. I want 8 hours of Batman. That's why I'm getting a Gotham show. That's why I'm getting a Penguin show. That's why you're giving me a setup of 3 hours. I want to live in it.
Yeah, look, I don't mind the idea that we're doing a long one. I don't mind it. It just, like I said, that tone for that long can be tough.
I want to suffer like Bruce Wayne suffers.
You want to suffer? I'm excited, but I'm also excited. Like, look, next week we have we have Batman Forever. Then we're gonna do Batman and Robin.
Less woo.
Sorry about that.
Oh my God. You want to catch hands.
What?
You want to catch hands.
What
I'm
happened?
realizing this.
Wait, what's going on? I don't even know. Oh man, sorry.
You guys notice the tone difference in the end of our Spider-Man rewatches and the end of our Batman rewatches? Is Spider-Man, every one of us was like, I can't wait to see how I feel. And like the end of our Batman rewatches is like, so next week.
Well, I think once we get into Nolan though, man, like that's.
Can't wait. I hope we're back in person like for Dark Knight, man.
I'm pumped to watch the Nolan movies again. I love those movies, and I haven't seen them. I haven't seen them in a handful. So
and I strongly like these movies as opposed to what the comments may say for all of our talks. But like, I think there's absolutely merit in all 4 of these. It's just really interesting that we love the way we feel about these 4 films, and it's hard to necessarily see if they hold up as well as opposed to the other ones. You're
not wrong. I think that even though, like I said, even though I'm not a fan of this movie, I didn't mind. I was gonna I bailed. I was gonna watch it on Monday or Tuesday. I bailed. I watched Arcane instead. Happy that I did it. But then going back and actually finishing it, it's still a Batman movie, and you're still watching Batman. And I'm like, okay, like I didn't go to bed like, oh, when I watched that, it was beginning rough, but as I mentioned, and I'm probably playing it up a little bit more than actually how I felt by the time I got to the end, because I enjoyed watching the last hour of it. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm excited to see Val Kilmer, man. I'm excited for the VK. I'm a big fan of that guy. So after that documentary.
Did you Winston, did you watch Val yet?
Not yet. But I've got
that
time.
Scene, man. Before you watch next week, definitely watch that scene for sure. But for Winston and Coy, this was a good one. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Once again, please go check out Patreon, everybody. And I mentioned before, what I didn't mention was SEN Live. It is going exclusively to Patreon. And for those people who didn't know, right now you get 2 episodes per month. Once we get to 250, we're at 200 patrons right now, by the way. Once we get to 250, we're going to 3 episodes a month. And then once we get to 500 patrons, we're going to get to 4 episodes a month of SEN Live. For people asking, yes, the audio for SEN Live will go on the podcast feed for SEN Live. So that will not go away. There's going to be some more rewatches. There'll be one rewatch that we do. It could be me, Winston and Coy doing an extra one. There's going to be bonus episodes. We're going to do one live episode of whether it is Sith Council or Big Thing. And then don't forget about the podcast feed, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think we're pretty good in the audio. I got to tell you. Listen, you want to yell at us while you're driving and tell us how wrong we are about this Burton movie? You should do it. Get on and check it out. But that's it, everybody. That's your show. Subscribe to us. Please do that. Please subscribe to us. Tell us exactly what you think. I've been commenting back to everyone. It has been tough, but I love doing it. I think after Boba Fett, it's been tough, but it takes me a little bit, is what I should say. So make sure that you guys have an opportunity to comment and subscribe. Please subscribe. It is very, very, very helpful. I think that's it. So without any further ado, we're going to hit the music. Oh, wait.
God!
Wait, hold on.
Damn it!
Where is it? Hold on. I'm trying to wait. Hold on.